the future of Justin Fields. Okay. So there's a long season left. There's still a lot of games to be played. But right now, the Bears currently possess the number 1 and number 2 overall pick in the 2023 draft. Okay. Now, going into this year, I don't think a single Bears fan would have told you. Maybe there's a couple out there, but I don't think there's a single Bears fan that would have told you, oh, yeah, we'll have the number 1 pick. That might be our pick. Like, everyone assumed if we had the number 1 pick, it'd be Carolina. Now, currently, that's how it stands. But at the end of the day, I think Bears fans genuinely felt very optimistic going into this year. So there's 2 scenarios on the table right now. Let's say the Bears suck and Justin Fields does not play well. Like, we just saw 2 great weeks from Denver and Washington. The scenario 1 is Justin Fields is traded for whatever you can get for him, and you take Caleb Williams with the number 1. You take Caleb Williams with the number 1 overall pick. The other scenario is Justin Fields balls out, and we trade the number 1 overall pick for more draft picks. And then you hopefully have a pick within the top 5 where you can grab Marvin Harrison Jr. And then wherever that other pick lands, you're getting a top first-round talent. So, Dobbs, let me ask you this. Right now, what do you think is a more likely scenario? Justin Fields is the starting quarterback for the Bears in 2024, or Caleb Williams is the new quarterback in Chicago?
It's so tough, bro. And honestly, I hate doing this. I hate being like split on something.
Yeah.
But I truly am in the sense of, and here's my thing. Look, I can completely see, like we said before, Justin, yeah, he's playing good and he's showing us really good weeks on tape, but I can see him having 1 or 2 really bad stinkers again throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And then it kind of hits the point where, again, like you said, if you have even the smidgenest of doubt, you got to go with Caleb. Caleb is that guy. And then, but on the other hand, I can totally see them kind of just really turning the corner like we thought they were going to at the beginning, having a historically bad start to the year and kind of just like weaning out 7, 8 wins throughout the rest of the year. And everyone's like, oh yeah, like Justin keeps playing like this. And then it would be where you're taking too much of a risk, not letting him keep developing under the team with the chemistry of the team. And I can see, bro, it truly is a scenario where I can see both, because also then if he's playing like that and you add Marvin to the mix for like certain, I mean, so it is I guess it's a great problem to have, I guess. Like, that's how I'm looking at it, where Bears fans are stressing too much. The truth of the matter is, bro, there's not really a wrong way to go about it. Like,
no, it's a great problem to have, but also, like, if you make the wrong decision, it can be catastrophic. Like, it can be bad. Like, if you choose to roll with Justin and he ends up not being that guy, what are the chances you're going to have a pick? Like, have the Bears could the Bears have ever had a player like Caleb Williams? Like, they have never been in position to, like, take a guy like that. So my thing is just, like, that's why I'm so, like, maybe you just do it, because you've never had this opportunity. You have this guy who is consensus number one. So let me lay out kind of what I, have processed while thinking about this. So if you trade Justin Fields, okay, you're going to get some type of draft capital back, but then you have to use the number 1 pick on a quarterback. You don't really get to upgrade your roster anywhere else besides that other pick that you will probably have in the top 10 if you're trading Justin Fields, okay? So if you do take Williams, you can then take Marvin Harrison Jr. or Olu or Joe Alt to kind of solidify that offense. And besides center, you're good. Like, your offense is good. But then if Fields balls out, you can trade the number 1 overall pick for a haul, and possibly players. Like, we saw that's what they did with DJ Moore, and it has worked. So if you trade for already proven players plus draft picks, I mean, think the Bears already have an extra second in 2025. If you get a first in 25 and 26, like, you have 2 firsts. You're going to have 2 firsts all the way from 24 to 26.
Well, that's why it's like, so let's look at it from an honest perspective.
Okay.
What Bears fans should want to happen.
Just
talk about what you guys, in my opinion, should want.
Let me say this before you go. It's the best case scenario for Justin Fields, for all Bears fans, for Justin Fields to ball out. It's the best case scenario.
Oh, it's not even close, because, like, to your point, if that happens, well, then you kind of just get to a point where, and if he actually stays consistent, it's like an embarrassment of draft capital of riches, like an embarrassment of riches in draft capital in the best way. I mean, there is no bad way to say that. That's the best case scenario for sure. And yeah, so I think Bears fans should be leaning towards Justin to keep doing this? Because, and then let's go on the other hand. If you guys, where Justin plays bad, whatever. Look, just because you get the generational QB, we know that does not mean you're going to go and go win. It does not guarantee that the roster is going to turn around. And then back to the other hand of we're you keep switching hands here. We're like juggling. Back to the best case scenario, you can build so much, and you don't have to. And yes, you would have to pay Justin sooner than later. And yes. But you have so much room to build the rest of the team with that capital, where you can kind of just pick and choose what you want to do. Like you can literally look at a team that's bad, their best players, and kind of be like, yeah, I'm eyeing him. How's that first rounder sound if I can get him? You know what I'm saying? Or a couple. You get my point. For Justin to ball out, it's far and away the best case scenario. It's not even close.
Yeah, so I just want to look at the grand scheme of things. I want to look at the Bears teams now over the last 3 years, the teams that Justin Fields has been a part of, okay? Whether it's offense or defense. So in 2021, the Bears are 24th in yards, 27th in points scored, 30th in passing, 14th in rushing, and 31st in turnovers, okay? They were slightly better last year in some categories. They were 28th in yards, 23rd in points scored, 32nd in passing, which is just atrocious, obviously, if you're looking at the quarterback position. But you also have to look at who's he throwing to. The line wasn't always healthy at the beginning of the year, or they weren't that good at the beginning of the year, but they were first in rushing. And I think that has a lot to do with Justin Fields' legs. 27th in turnovers, okay? The issue through these last 3 years of offense has been turnovers. They've been horrible with turnovers. Okay, but this is this year, okay? Now, they have ranked higher in mostly everything by far outside of rushing. 13th in total yards, 11th in points scored. Now, if I were to tell you that, a lot of people would not think that the Bears are like that high in those lists. So 11th in points scored, 15th in passing, 8th in rushing, and 25th in turnovers, okay? So that's the offense. Like, they have gotten better this year. Even though it's only through 5 games, like, they have been better than what they were the last 2 years. Especially passing. Passing and total points scored. So let's move into the defense.
No, let's say the defense, if anything, that's the regression point, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like...
So this is the thing. They were 22nd in total yards in 21, 28th in takeaways, 11th in points allowed. Last year, they're 29th in total yards allowed, 14th in takeaways, and 32nd in points allowed. So they were the most scored on team in 2022. This year, they are 30th in total yards allowed, 26th in takeaways, 30th in points allowed. Justin Fields' record as a starter is horrible, but you have to ask, how many games would they have won if their defense wasn't atrocious? And mind you, 21 was when Nagy was still here. So they have been worse the 2 years that they've had a defensive-minded head coach as their guy. And that, to me, is why he has to go.
I was going to say, we're certainly at a point where, regardless, I don't really know. That's what the most, actually, now that you bring it up, and it kind of slipped my mind for a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's probably the most awkward thing about the entire situation is, if we go back to this hand here of the Justin having the great rest of the year, is it puts the ownership group in a tough spot where it's like, okay, do we switch up the situation again? Even though we have to, because the defense is terrible. That's what he's here for. But then you got to kind of restart a few things over again, get the coach QB relationship again. And I'm not, and obviously, like we're saying, the way things are right now, I have no clue. What I'm leaning towards being what scenario is going to happen. So I do think regardless, though, we do see Eberflus out some way, somehow. However it's going to happen, it has to happen.
Yeah. So
at this point,
I agree. I think you have to get like an offensive-minded guy and then just find like a stud DC, because it's like the defense isn't good. It's not good.
Terrible.
And here's the thing, like, if you're a defensive-minded head coach, we've had this discussion multiple times, you have to elevate your team somehow. You have to. Like, what is the point? I mean, it's an offensive league. The rules benefit offense. Why are you here if you're not elevating your team?
Well, and I also just want to bring up, even just from last week's example,
he was much better though this week.
Well, yes, but here's my thing. Big red flag in my opinion, because I've seen this. I'm telling you from witnessing a bunch of bad defenses in my life from the Saints. Not recently, but I've witnessed a lot of them in the past. It's like, it's easy to come out and play good for a couple quarters, and then it's just like when the effort just gets, it's like, that was enough. Like, and that was, you clearly saw with that Commanders game, it was like they definitely kind of, the effort was not the same in the second half, because the Commanders came out ready to gunsling and they were getting anything they wanted in the second half.
Yeah.
I mean, it got to a point where, I'm sure you guys were getting a little nervous. Like, okay, are we really going to do this 2 weeks in a row?
Yeah, I was.
So it's like, that's where my thing comes in. It's like, if you're going to be a defensive coach, you can't have those weeks. And this is every week. If it was every once in a while, it wouldn't be a big deal. But truthfully, the Bears are the type, and again, Sam Howell almost put up like 400 yards against you guys. Like, yes, they had 20 points. Yeah, they didn't have a good offensive week. But the reality of the situation is you can move the ball on the Bears defense right now, pretty much however you want. I mean, you can kind of just do whatever you want on them. It's just like you said, now when the offense comes together, they actually can do things too. It's just the offense was at a low point. And with the defense at a low point, like we said, they look like an 0-17 team.
It looked bad.
When the offense wants to do this, they can win games. But when you're a defensive coach, back to the point, it's a joke.
Yeah, so moving into kind of my final points here is like, I think the main thing I really want to address is if the Bears are going to stick with Justin Fields going into the 2024 year, if you just look at his stats from 2022 into 5 games this year, because I just threw out 21 because 21 is just, he's in a horrible offense with a coach that's trying to save his job. And it's just, I don't think that's a fair evaluation. I think he was thrown to the fire with really nothing to work with. So looking back in 22, he was 16th in touchdown passes, 26th in pass yards, 17th in average per completion. So he was 29th in completions and 27 in attempts. So that's not bad. That means he was airing the ball out a decent amount. 32nd in completion percentage, 32nd in yards per game. And he was the first for the most sacked quarterback. He was PFF's 56th graded passer. Obviously, not everyone plays 16 games, so it's a little janky there. But just looking at his 2023 through 5 games, he's tied second for most touchdown passes, 13th in pass yards, 8th in average per completion yards. But he's also 18th in attempts. So that's pretty good, in my opinion. That means they're airing the ball. They're not just dumping it off like they were the first 3 weeks. And I think that's so important. The issue that we're kind of seeing, though, is he's 27th in completion. So he hasn't really upped his completion percentage. That would really be your area of concern. 13th in yards per game, 3rd for most sacked, and he's PFF's 26th graded passer. So obviously there's huge strides. I mean, like, in my opinion, I would like to see him use his legs a little bit more because that's what made him so deadly. And if he's developing as this passer and you're able to get him in this rhythm of 2nd in touchdown passes and 13th in pass yards, imagine if you get his legs going at 70% of what you were doing last year. I don't know how you stop that offense.
No, and I think, too, what I wanted to say is, now that you said it, a little side note, but I think, and this is just obvious stuff, but what Justin needs to start doing more is, and it was a prime example this week where Jalen was doing it a ton, where it's like, you know what? Things are starting to open up. You know what? I'm not going to hesitate. Sometimes that's the problem. What Justin is just, he hesitates too much in the pocket. It's like, I'm waiting, because you want to get the downfield strike, right? Every good QB, you want to hit the downfield strike. You want to get the offense moving. You want to get some flow into the stadium, into the fans, right? But the reality of the situation is, sometimes when nothing's down there, you have a free 5-10 yards every time if you just make the decision quick enough where you're like, I'm just going to roll up, roll out, roll up. Because what you do is, if you take enough time where everybody's already downfield, well, then everybody who's playing soft just comes down to play the run.
Right.
But if you don't hesitate when they're still 15, 20 yards in their drop,
that's kind of how Lamar's been playing.
That's what you have to do. And again, because the reality of the situation is, like he even said himself, it was coached out of him. He has to like Man in Black himself and go like, with the shit. I haven't even seen the movie, but I know the meme and I know that shit. And I know they do something where they make themselves forget what they learned. He's got to do that with them. He's got to Men in Black himself. He's got to say, fuck it. They don't know me better than I know myself. And obviously coach want the best for you, which is why they did that. But the reality of the situation is you're 1-4. The best thing for them and for you now is to win a lot of games because, like we said, Caleb's coming potentially. And if you want it, you got to make the resume as filled out as possible so that they don't go on the most generational guy they've ever had a shot at, if that is the case.
I agree.
I think it's just as simple as that at this point.
I agree. So in summary, I think my thing is like, I'm not off the Justin Fields bandwagon. Like a week ago, even after Denver, after his performance, I was like, yeah, okay, this is Denver. Now, the Commanders aren't great on defense, but at the end of the day, it's like you don't pick who you play. So my thing is, he needs to ball out against the good teams on the rest of the schedule. Like he needs to, like what he did against the Commanders, like that needs to be, I'm not talking about 4 touchdowns every game, but what he did, like that needs to be like the minimum for the rest of the year. Like he needs to throw for 280 and like not fuck up.
Yeah, I would say even just more than anything, he could even just go for 200, no interceptions, and give me like a rushing touchdown or a bunch of rushing yards. And that's the same thing. It's like but to your point, just productive, no turnovers. Not no turnovers. It's not going to be, that's not realistic. But let's minimize turnovers and let's get at that completion percentage. Sometimes that's my main thing. I'm concerned about Justin. Is sometimes on things that should be a little easier, it looks like he kind of like is either a little high, a little low, a little to the side. I just want to see him hit dudes in their chest a little more often. Yeah.
I think a big thing too will be beating Minnesota. If he can beat Minnesota, beat a division rival who went, I know the record's not great this year, but they went 13-4 last year. Like you obviously have to be in games to do that, even if it's one score. Let's shut some people up. Like let's and yes, Minnesota's defense isn't great, but let's do it. Like let's no more guessing. Like that's what I was kind of arguing today with like the Stroud shit is like sometimes these guys just look the part. And if they don't,
that's here. What you're really trying to say is I figured out because this is how I'm looking at it now, bro. We know the Bears defense is probably likely going to shit the bed almost every week.
Yeah,
that's fine. That's to be expected. However, if the offense shits the bed in tangent, then it's got to be a sign.
Yeah,
that's really where it's at. The offense just got to do their thing.
Yeah. So this is going to be definitely an interesting storyline for the rest of the 2023 season because this could really lead to a decade-changing moment for the franchise. It could be amazing. It could be catastrophic. So
can't be at this point. It couldn't be more catastrophic than like the 5 years and the beginning of the year you guys had to go through at this point. So you know what? I think that things made it finally started looking up.
Possibly.